Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy. Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Saturday Night Drive-In, where we take a break from all the disastrous scrap we wade through every week and sit down and enjoy discussing movies. And even if we don't have fun, we have interesting discussions. Should be a good one today. Jed has been looking forward to this one for a while, even before on the unfortunate sufferings I sometimes, from his perspective, laid upon him. But either way, because he's known what this episode was going to be like today for a year. He has known what this is going to be like. Listen, I'm not unhappy. It's just I am not a fan of this. Before we get any further, before we get into the down and dirty of it, Jed, the man, the myth, the ginger, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and I actually agree. Tonight is going to be a very interesting discussion because it's been a while since I watched this film while paying attention to it to a strong enough degree with an eye of critical opinion. I still adore this film subjectively, love it to hell and back, but I can
Mr.
see
objectivity.
Exactly. I can see some legitimate criticism in it for the first time, at least to a large degree, that I can understand someone not liking it. So it'll really be an interesting discussion, not as one-sided as perhaps you feared it would be.
Well, listen. I know that probably the chat and anybody watching later on is going to be against me because let's be honest, The Princess Bride is beloved.
Oh, absolutely.
It is beloved. It is worshipped. One of our guests we were hoping to get on today would have probably torn me limb from limb with what I'm going to say today.
Mm-hmm.
But scheduling didn't happen, so we couldn't have him. But I understand what we're wading into. And Jed said a very important thing. The objectivity part, that's one thing. Subjectively, you guys can understand, I was alive when this movie came out. I was there when it became the unsuccessful theatrical thing, but I was there when it became it took a decade for it to become, almost a decade for it to become the cult classic. I was in the middle of high school when this thing really hit its groove. And you got to understand, you go to parties, even when they weren't like party stuff, you go to parties, people hanging out, this movie comes on. And Jed, you know what it's like when people watch Monty Python movies, right?
Oh, yes. I'd not seen any Monty Python movie until I became an adult, but I could quote all of the Holy Grail before ever seeing it once.
When you go to a Monty Python sitting with people, you don't actually watch the movie. You sit there as everybody goddamn quotes it.
Yep.
Now, listen. I have my own words like that. When my buddies and I used to watch Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, we were quoting away, but we were also gaming at the same time, so we weren't exactly sitting there watching it. We were just having fun to do that. But Monty Python, that's what it's like, and that's what for me The Princess Bride is like.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting there, you don't actually watch it. You sit there as everybody quotes it as you go through the movie. So I develop a little bit of a PTSD tick about it, and I also was never the biggest fan of it to begin with. I didn't hate it. It just never hit that warm, soft, fuzzy spot that it does with everybody else. And hail and howdy to the chat. I hope you guys are having a good time across both our chats. Hit the like button wherever you are. Subscribe to our channels, and we hope you enjoy the rest of this show. Okay, Princess Bride. Jed, you want to set us up, Princess Bride?
So yeah, Princess Bride, as he said before, was a theatrical failure that became a cult classic once it came out on VHS, and is just a very simple love story and it's a weird fantasy setting. Like sometimes the film can't decide, is this a different planet, a high fantasy, or is this Italy? It's so inconsistent with like its rules, its world building. Gilder, I don't believe, is a real country.
No.
The false antagonist of the film, but it's just this love story. These two people who were separated by situations outside of their control for 5 years, and then when they reunite, she's engaged to be married to the prince, who's a conniving, evil person who's wanting to start a war using her death as a pawn to start it. So it's just all about them trying to reunite and stave off this war. And it's a weird movie. I can fully admit that. I don't quite understand why it's at the cult classic level that it is.
I think I
love
sort of
it,
do.
but
I have a theory. I have a theory on that. I've been thinking about this. I watched it on Wednesday. I got a real head start on it this week. Or was it Thursday? I don't know. I wanted to play Pal World, so I wanted to get it out of the way. I have a theory on that. So here's how I look at this movie. And I'm also going to drop a couple of interesting real-life facts that are connected to actually me in a weird way. One, I think that people love this movie because weird, as is said in the chat, as Wild Dave says in the chat, goofy stuff aside, the acting is very well done. By the key, this movie is held up by two people, by Mandy Patinkin and Carrie Elwes.
Oh, absolutely.
It's held up by them.
Very inconsistent.
Robin Wright is as bland as you can possibly get.
I nearly laughed my head off near I think it was the end of the first act, right before the swamps, where she goes, "Oh, my sweet Wesley, what have I done?" and then throws herself down the cliff. She thought he was dead for 5 years. Hear some dude scream, "As you wish," and she's immediately like, "Oh my God, my sweet Wesley, what have I done?" And she's like immediately like, "It's him. He's alive. Nothing to worry about. Let's go."
While they've also, Andre the Giant was just
lovable.
Nice. Lovable. He was lovable. Although at times, man, I couldn't understand what he was saying sometimes. Andre is one of the GOATs, dude. But
I have to admit, this was the first time watching this film that I understood what he was saying when he was in the black cloak in the wheelbarrow. I did not know he was saying he was the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah.
This is the first time I knew that that's what he was saying. So yeah, sometimes it is difficult.
Okay, so as I said, basically, Mandy Patinkin and Carrie Elwes, they carry this movie, the entire breadth of it. Sometimes you get a couple of cameos, which we'll get to, and then the lovableness of Andre the Giant. That's why they love this. Secondly, I think, and this is how I want to describe this movie. This movie is a collection of scenes that people wait for. They're waiting for these certain scenes, which in themselves are iconic because of the cult ranking of this movie. But in the end, this movie really is just a collection of scenes, because while there is a through line of Buttercup brokenhearted, Wesley trying to save Buttercup, then Wesley trying to save Buttercup, then Inigo's revenge, it still doesn't drive with power, because it drags in it also. And I'll say this now because I'm not going to wait till the end. There is no real score to speak of to uplift this movie.
I love the music. It's campy. It's campy, but like every time the chase the chase music and the soundtrack that plays in Inigo's fight with the six-fingered man, where like the beats go with
I'm just saying it doesn't. To me, it doesn't elevate it,
but I love it.
It doesn't elevate the movie. It's what I always say. It's score that serves a scene, but it doesn't. You're not going to walk away humming the themes afterwards. You're not.
That's true.
They're not going to earwig you. They're not going to be stuck in your brain where you have to go find that track somewhere and listen to it.
No, I agree.
That's what I'm saying. So it's the acting of Mandy Patinkin, Carrie Ellis. These iconic scenes. Between Wesley and God, what's the smart guy's name? I suddenly forget it. Fassini. Fassini.
Yeah.
But that's an iconic scene. Of course, the two major duels between Wesley Inigo and then Inigo and the Count, Six-Fingered Man. Those are two key scenes. And then you wait for the one-liners. Billy Crystal, have fun storming the castle. Boo! Boo! I know I'm gonna get booed on this over everything I say, but it's these things, and I will say this: every bit of Carrie Elway's dialogue is spot on, and I'll give them with it. The dialogue hits when it's Mandy Patinkin and Carrie Elwes.
Oh, absolutely,
because they're giving it their all. And fun fact here. Fun fact. Take a step back for a second. I want to get this out early while we're beginning here. Back in the 70s. My mom did Mandy Patinkin's hair while he worked in New York, and while he was acting in New York. Another one of those moments where my mom knew famous people back in the day. So now I never met Mandy Patinkin, but she did his hair during the 70s. So interesting fact. Okay, so let's go through the story a little bit, and we'll comment on the characters because I think that's the best way to do this because it is a character-driven story. Without the characters, this thing goes nowhere. I'll just say this: Fred Savage and Peter Falk. Okay, fine, whatever. Whatever.
Which characters were those?
Fred Savage plays the kid. He's the sick kid, and Columbo Peter Falk is Grandpa.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was a weird choice for me. I think that's what makes this more storybook fantasy is because they added in that narrative element because that's not in the book as far as I'm aware. They added those two as a narrative device. It's a weird choice. It's definitely unique in a successful film to do something like this.
I think they chose to do it because they wanted to draw you in. Because that's why I call this a fairy tale more than fantasy, because it's got all those fairy tale elements to it. A little bit of monsters, a little bit of magic, true love, that kind of stuff, a little bit of heroic escapades, but without high fantasy Lord of the Rings setting type of stuff. It's fairy tale fantasy.
Well, it's a narrative device that I think made things easier for them. I wouldn't necessarily call it a lazy decision or anything like that.
No,
that's not what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I know.
I'm building up. So, but it does make the writing easier for them in a sense, because in one sense, this is a storybook meant for kids. It's a fairy tale setting, so that can explain some of the more cheesy aspects of it. And they use it several times to have bypass scene transitions and pacing issues. And if they're ever confused about something, it also serves as exposition. Like, it's this really interesting narrative tool that made the whole process probably easier for them. If there was a section, it's like, oh, I don't know how to get from this scene to this scene. Just say, like, the kid wasn't enjoying it, so the grandpa's like, all right, I'll skip ahead to when it gets interesting again.
This might be my bias, but maybe it's just Rob Reiner being a weak director. I'm not a fan of Rob Reiner, both as a human being and a director.
He's quite the interesting human being. I don't know what else I'm familiar with him directing wise, though.
Oh,
let me look him up.
He did a lot.
Not off the top of my head.
If once you realize it, you're like, okay, I know that movie a lot, but I'm not a fan. And so maybe again, that's just him cheating to cover his shortcomings. My opinion.
He did Few Good Men. That's enough for me to.
Yeah,
he worked on that one.
Yeah, like I said, he's not the greatest, but when we went over that, we did A Few Good Men. We discussed that.
We did.
So, yeah,
I love that movie.
Oh, we love that movie. Yeah, but that movie is again great because of, as we said during that, because of Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. So that's why that movie's great. Anyway, all right. So Peter Falk and Fred Savage. I think I like the way you put it. It's there to help scene transitions, which would otherwise be awkward, because the way this moves at certain times through the narrative, they're jumping around, and sometimes time passes a little quickly, or they fail to accurately tell you how time passes here and there. I mean, they sort of tell you, but they don't. All right, so let's get into it. So we already covered the beginning of this, where the whole introduction of Wesley as the farm boy and Buttercup as the basically farmer's daughter, and how she treats him, and how all he ever said was "as you wish," and eventually she understood that was his way of saying "I love you," and it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't endear me to either of them, and it never endears me to Buttercup at all. It's a horrible introduction of Buttercup, and I'm forever annoyed with her throughout the entire movie.
Oh, I can absolutely agree with that. And something that I noticed in this watch through that, of course, I always knew that Buttercup stuff at the beginning, but there's no one in this film that I could call a good person. There's no one who is morally upright or like the classic hero archetype, because Buttercup, extremely abusive, just generally a bitch throughout the entire film, not just in this opening. Wesley's a pirate known for pillaging and murder and all sorts of heinous things.
Yeah.
And then Indigo and Fezzik, they were willingly participating.
Hired thugs.
Hired thugs who knowingly were starting a war that would lead to the deaths of thousands.
Yeah, you're right.
They knew about it, and they were going along with it. Yes, they did say, oh, we don't want to murder the princess, but they were still going to go along with it anyway. They did voice their objections, but they still were going to do it anyway. And there's really no characters that I can think of as wholly heroic architect. They're purely flawed characters. They're anti-heroes at
Which
best.
isn't bad.
No, it's interesting. I'd never consciously thought of that before.
Yeah. Which is why I kind of don't listen. I like my heroes. I like people like the hero do stuff. And while I like Wesley for the most part, I like Inigo. I'm not exactly rooting for them, because Wesley's whole thing is I just want to get the woman I love back from the prince and this and that. Well, let's jump right to this point here. This is one of my sticking points, and I know I'm hoping that you're going to join me in this point here, because I know you hate it when it happens. When Buttercup gets kidnapped, later on we understand how the prince finds her, how Humperdinck finds her, because he set the whole thing up. So it makes sense that why he's able to track them all the way where they are.
Yeah.
How does Wesley know she's been kidnapped when it was all done while she was just out taking a ride? It's not like she was on her way someplace. It was public knowledge trick. How does Wesley find out she's on that boat?
You're right. It is a major coincidence that causes a lot of issues. At best, I think what it's hinting at is he was deciding it's finally time to reunite with her after 5 years now that he's the Dread Pirate Roberts, but that's still massively coincidental that he knew she was on that ship.
That's the thing, though. If let's say, for the sake of headcanon, he was spying on her or had people spying on her, that means he would have been in close proximity to know she had been kidnapped. And he could have, then if he was close proximity, why didn't he stop them on the road before they got to the ship, where it gets more difficult to chase them down in the ship and then climb the cliffs of insanity?
It doesn't make sense. You're 100% correct.
Yeah, I listen, that never jumped out. I blame you for me being aware of this stuff for coincidences. In all my years of watching this, granted, it's been a long time since I watched this, because of our repeated discussions of this type of stuff, I realized, wait a minute. How did he know she's on that ship? How did he know she'd been kidnapped in the first place? I don't get it. And they never answer that.
No,
they never answer that.
I can't answer it. Normally, I can come up with at least a decent explanation, but as much as yours is as close as we can get, I don't think a spy network is quite sufficient to explain it away.
And I don't think the Dread Pirate Roberts has a spy network.
No, from what he described when he took over, they refresh the crew every time the name changes over. So there's not a whole lot of people who work with him closely.
A spy network is reliant on trust and one person running it. And if the one person running it changes all the time, then the spy that can't work either. I'm not picking it apart, Andy Pickle. I'm just saying, I'm critiquing the movie. One line from him as to how she knew had been kidnapped, it satisfies it. To me, it's just tidy, making the story tight enough.
I think if I were being as generous as possible, the explanation I could come up with is he heard that she was going to marry the prince, and so he decided to go see her, and he couldn't bring himself to do it. So he was actively following her, getting up the guts in the weeks leading up to the wedding, and he saw the kidnapping happen.
Requires headcanon.
It does. Yeah, absolutely does. And that's the closest one I can see is, you hear this woman's about to marry the Prince of Florence. Oh, who is it? Oh, it's Buttercup. Oh, I need to go see her.
Yeah.
It's major headcanon, but that's the best I can do. And just because it's a fairy tale, I don't think is a significant excuse to justify a story not making sense. It can be, hey, it's not important, so we can just shut our brains off and enjoy it. But it's still worth discussing. Is hey, objectively, there is some logical inconsistencies.
Yeah,
doesn't mean we're going to enjoy it any less.
No,
but
it doesn't ruin the movie. It's
no,
just,
absolutely not.
Thanks to our critical discussions we've had for over a year now on these things, I can't not see it when it happens now, because I'm looking for these things. I'm saying that this stuff makes sense. This is it.
You're welcome.
So I don't think they skipped a page yet. Oh, or you could say the grandpa skipped a page while telling it. But the only time we see him skip a page is when they're going into the forest. That's the only time we see him skip a page. So either way, maybe Prince again, Andy Pickle. We're relying on headcanon. We're relying on headcanon to fill in the hole. That's all.
That would be an interesting one.
Yes,
and he refused, and so he had to go to Fezzik, and he knew that the prince was interested in getting her kidnapped.
Yeah.
That could explain it, but again, just like you said, headcanon.
Now, again, we're making up interesting suggestions, and I like this. It's making it more interesting for me. It's it's giving more depth to the characters than the movie does. Oh, right. Let's get to, again, as I said before, and I did that on purpose this time, how we got to the first major scene, the 3 trials of saving Buttercup from Vicini, Inigo, and Fezzik. Inigo versus Wesley. A great scene. It is a great scene. First of all, now I have a little, as a fencer, because I did do fencing, I'm always critical of fencing scenes. It's mostly technically correct, although every time I see somebody do a spin move, I want to reach out and slap them in the back of the head. You don't do spin moves. You just don't. I'm okay with flips. I'm okay with this and that. Waiting for the sword to fall down. That's kind of hamming it up. But a spin move, I hate spin moves. I tolerate it in Star Wars because the Force is guiding a Jedi or a Sith. Lightsaber is going to move on its own. But I don't tolerate it when you're doing a straight fencing, when you're just 2 human beings with no extra sensory powers.
I completely agree with that.
But it is good. You could see that Carrie Elwes and Maida Patinkin, they trained for the scene because their footwork was good, and they weren't just swinging swords to hit swords most of the time. They were actually doing parry and reposts. So the choreography is good, and it's done well, and it's made interesting. Oh, I'm not left-handed. I'm not left-handed either. And then suddenly it intensifies. And even before that, you get good exposition. The exposition of Inigo's past is well placed. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I really like the character development in that scene more than anything else because, it makes sense why he'd be talking about what he's talking about. We get more background. We get a lot of personality from both of them.
Yes.
And they're, as much as they're both willing to do heinous things, they're willing to blur morality, both of them have a strong sense of sportsmanship. And
honor.
So does Fezzik, of honor. Their honor is very strong, where like, hey, you dropped your sword, take a minute, you're good.
You just climbed a mountain, let's take a break.
Yeah.
Because it's all, here's the thing. That's why Inigo is a likable character as much as any of them are likable in this, is because he has, like you said, a personality. We hear his story and we can see that he's not a bad guy. It's just a job to further his own desire for his revenge saga. but he also wants to test his skill. Because that's why I appreciate Inigo. He is a man of the steel. He's a man of the sword. All he wants to do is either get his revenge and test himself to be better. So I appreciate his motivations, and he sees right away that at that point, the Man in Black is going to be a test, because we're just watching a dude who climbed the mountain as fast as Fezzik pulled them up there. So he's got to be a challenge. And at the same time, I appreciate this scene because prior to this, all we saw with Wesley was kind of him talking softly as you wish. And suddenly here's Cary Elwes chewing up scenery and just full on being a swashbuckler. And it's now right away we know it's him. We can tell. We're not stupid watching the screen. We can see it's Cary Elwes under the mask. And we're having this moment, though, to get reintroduced to Wesley. And actually, this is his full character. The character we saw at the beginning of the movie wasn't him. This is who he is. The brilliant strategist, the skilled fighter, the scoundrel, the pirate. And it's a good reintroduction.
It is kind of interesting to think about with this character is the two people he seems closest with, besides, his relationship with Indigo that's built up throughout the film, are Buttercup and the original Roberts. From his conversations, he has feelings for Roberts. Like, he respects Roberts.
The previous Roberts.
Yeah, the previous Roberts. Yeah, he looks up to Roberts. 4
of them.
Right. But those two people were both extremely abusive relationships. And the other one was better for him than the Buttercup one because, like you said, that wasn't the real Wesley while he was being ordered around by Buttercup.
Well, that's an interesting fact. Cary Elwes had a broken foot during that scene. Interesting.
There were a lot of issues on set.
The fact that they managed to pull off the footwork the way they did, and then again, it could have been a stunt double half the time under a mask. So, but what they did there, very well done. I couldn't tell. That's pretty good. Well, that just also shows to Goya why they shoot movie scenes out of order. Because later on, he's walking perfectly fine, not with a broken foot. So you never know when scenes are shot. At least we never know. They know. So that is one of the iconic scenes, and it ends well where they both have their fair play. While Wesley may be a pirate, he's not necessarily a murderer, even though he defeated Inigo in a fair fight.
I would err on the side that he's still a murderer because pirates.
But I mean, I would say cold blood though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he killed anyone in cold blood, but I would be shocked if 5 years being a pirate. Not all of them is Dread Pirates, but 5 years being a pirate.
Oh, he killed people.
He definitely killed people, maybe in some morally dubious ways. To be honest, anyone that he did kill in fair combat, he was still robbing from them, so they were probably morally in the right. So,
but
a lot of people try to justify his actions and just say, like I've heard people say, he's a pirate in name only.
I don't think
he's still
so.
Actively a pirate. He still did some crazy shit.
From the understanding of the history of the Dread Pirate Roberts, every single Dread Pirate Roberts is massively wealthy from their actions, which means you sacked ships, you destroyed ships, you had to kill both merchants and soldiers on ships. There's no getting around that if you're a pirate.
And the whole thing about he used just the name Dread Pirate Roberts to get people to surrender, that would work for some things, but that's not going to work every single time. And there's a reason that reputation exists. You've got to back up the reputation to perpetuate the reputation. So maybe once every so often, he's like, all right, we got to make sure Florence and everyone else knows that we're cold-blooded killers. So we're going to kill all these people just so our reputation stays intact.
Yeah,
like after 20 years, if it's just like, oh, the first Dread Pirate Roberts was a really violent psychopath, but all the other ones, they were just using his name and it was fine. After 15 years, that reputation would have diluted, and people are like, he let us go. He was real nice to us.
That's kind of the problem, I think, where people love this movie too much. They are creating headcanon because they don't want to feel bad about loving these characters.
Yeah.
Now
they're not good people, but I still love them. It's an interesting.
They're
dichotomy.
interesting characters. They just they're in my opinion, as shallow as they are, they're still interesting characters because of again the performances and their stories. What they're doing is at least with Inigo's the only one with a real story. I mean, Wesley's just Dread Pirate Roberts wants his girlfriend back. That's kind of it. There's no greater good. He's not doing it to stop a war. He's not doing it to stop anything else.
It's just a side effect is that he stops the war.
Yeah. But what happens then? Okay, so I'm okay with him knocking out Inigo because I feel they made that little Warriors connection there.
Mm-hmm.
Because he respects what he's doing and he wants him to have a chance to finish his vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Fezzik fight isn't really much of anything. It's again. Now I didn't mean to do that.
Again.
What is this? 5 weeks now? 5 weeks. I need to get a sticky and I need to put it up when we're doing this show. Don't say again. I got a sticky pad somewhere around here. I got to do this. This is getting terrible. It's getting bad. I'm catching myself after the fact. Sometimes I do it on purpose because I have to transition something I previously said. But that was the unnecessary one right there. There it was. Watch, I won't do it. I won't do it again. But
it's a difficult word to avoid, man. It's all good.
Not avoid, just don't use it inappropriately. I'm using it inappropriately, and it's terrible. Again, no. Here we go. We gets Fezzik. That's just he put the sleeper hold on him. Great, you got him.
It's got some fun dialogue between the two of them, but it doesn't necessarily develop them any further.
It makes Fezzik lovable, is what
it does.
That whole scene is to make Fezzik lovable.
That's true.
That he could have just destroyed his head with a fastball, and it would have been over.
Oh yeah. And I didn't mention it previously, but I think the best written scene in the movie is the one that we just talked about, the first fight between Indigo and Wesley.
That's Mandy Patinkin, dude. That is Mandy Patinkin putting on
performance-wise, but I think the writing is pretty solid because introducing that level of exposition in a logical way is difficult. So I do believe that fight scene is probably the best written.
Yeah,
and then it's
because their delivery, the dialogue is they had good dialogue and two actors delivering it spot on, which means you're not taken out of it. And that's the key. You're not taken out of it. There's not an extraneous word. They're both committed to both their accents and the personalities that they're inhabiting. And you get that likableness of both of them. You like Inigo. You like, at this point, Man in Black, Wesley, Dread Pirate Roberts. You're enjoying his cavalierness of the whole thing. And then you're enjoying his actions in that. And you're right. I agree with you. It does. That's why this I did on purpose that time. This movie holds up because Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin carry the movie. That scene that's the first real acting scene we get, to be honest. Think about it.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
Because all the back and forth between Vicini and Inigo and Fezzik, that's just back and forth. That there's no real anything in there. Buttercup whining, complaining, giant man-eating eels, whatever. No, this is the first time you get a scene where there's some meat to it, and you're getting some of the story, a real story, not just girl being kidnapped, somebody trying to save her. So that's why it works in that. And I think that's the moment. That is the moment I feel that a lot of people get attached to this movie. The first duel. Some sappy, hopeless romantic girls will be going over, oh my God, the farm boy and the farm girl, they're kissing as you wish. Some of them are going to be in it right away because of that. But other people, I think, are completely sucked in when they do with that duel scene. Dudes are going, hey, man, a fight. All right. And then for those of us who want some meat on the bone to the dialogue of the story, we get a good exchange between two characters who have a rapport and two actors who are doing a good job. I think that's fair to say. I think that's fair.
It's by this point there's something for everyone.
Yeah. Right. The second famous iconic scene that people latch onto, the Battle of Wits. The Battle of Wits. People love this scene because of, I think, the dialogue exchange. How do you feel about it?
I would agree. It's very hard to follow in an intentional way. Like this warped logic of this guy it's all ego.
Inconceivable!
He doesn't even know what the word means. He throws around names like Plato and Aristotle, like they should mean something, but I doubt he has any idea who those people actually are. He just knows their names. So
they're
I'm
philosophers. They're not intellectuals. That's two different things. A philosopher
Very
and
different
an
thing.
intellectual are not the same thing. Trust me. I took a philosophy class once. It was bullshit.
But it is kind of funny. His entire personality is ego, but it's so aggressive. His ego is so aggressive that it tricked Indigo as well as Fezzik to both believe he was vastly intelligent. And even at the end of the movie, they don't really recognize that he's not as smart as they thought he was. It was just, oh, the man in black is smarter, so he's who we need instead of what's his bucket anyway. But it is kind of interesting.
It's one of the Vicini comes along. He's using $10 words when a $1 word would suffice.
He's misusing $10 words.
Yes, and he's doing that at the same time. He's using $10 words he doesn't understand to try and pass himself off as smart. Because let's be honest, the plan he's using was Humperdinck's plan. He didn't come up with this plan.
No.
He's following orders of Humperdinck to take her to the border of I almost said Gondor. Gildor. Gildor.
Which I don't think is a real place.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, so there's Australia, there's Spain, there's Florence, but then there's randomly Gildor. It's confusing. The world building is very all over the place. It's inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Sicilian, so yeah, there's Sicily in this world too.
Yeah, it takes place in the real world, yet it doesn't. I mean, this kind of feels like it's in the Renaissance era because of the swords and the costume design.
I'd say late Renaissance.
But there's no guns.
It's true.
There's no guns. You would think that what's the name of Humperdinck's country that has basically a castle and 5 people and only an army of 30 people?
Florence.
Maybe, was it Florence?
That's what they call it.
Really?
Yeah.
Something else.
Which is just a city.
Yeah. And
see what I mean?
But they're not in Italy because the geography doesn't match up.
They go across the gap in the Mediterranean from Italy to France, and that's where the Cliffs of Insanity are. Maybe the Cliffs of Insanity are the Pillars of Hercules moved.
When you think about it, there are these tiny little things in the movie that just don't make sense, and I don't know if they did it on purpose or if it was lazy writing. Have you read the book?
I haven't. No.
Okay, neither have I. You're frozen, by the way. Okay, you're back. You were frozen there for a second.
I just wasn't moving.
Okay. There was. Shut up. God damn it. Oh, you got me there. Good. That was good. I had never read the book. I mean, if anybody in the chat has read the book, we would like to be enlightened on this. I don't know if it's lazy screenwriting or if it's just lazy storytelling in general from it. So I don't know, but it's. And I wonder passage of time too, because they seem to get everywhere pretty quickly, back and forth, this and that. It doesn't seem to. Granted, Europe is small when you consider going between places, but it still takes time, especially
back then.
Especially here's the thing: when Humperdinck is chasing them, that's a lot of horses. That means they needed a galleon to get those horses. That many horses there. How did
those are slow?
Were they waiting at the Cliffs of Insanity for it to happen? Because there was that shit.
It would be hard for him to explain away waiting for that. Like, yeah, it's a fake pursuit that he's.
It is a fake pursuit. We know that it's a fake pursuit,
right? But it's like, oh, I just randomly had to be really close to where they ended up. That might strain credulity.
Because only him and Count Six Fingers know it's a setup. The soldiers there are just the soldiers. They don't know anything. Either way, let's get back to the scene because I think that's the best way we're going to keep going through this. Let's go through the iconic scenes because that's what this is, a collection of iconic scenes. The Battle of Wits. I like the way it's resolved. In fact, I think it's a clever thing. I've been basically inoculating myself, growing up a resistance to this poison for years so that it doesn't get me, doesn't hurt me. You know? Yeah, they mentioned Greenland.
That's a great line. That scene though doesn't
far away.
Neither of them are actually rhyming though.
I know.
Head and dead don't rhyme, and peanut and mean it don't rhyme.
That's
why I laugh. That is the joke. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I appreciate it.
I don't know. Listen, when we play Crusader Kings 3, those don't exist even in any of the alternate kingdom titles that appear when you create areas there. I've never seen Gilder appear in any of the counties in southern France. So I don't know about that. Battle of Wits, I'm okay with the way it ends. Then we arrive at him pulling her along. Let me ask you this. Why do you think he didn't reveal himself to her immediately?
I think it's because of that scene that he had later on with her right before, they roll down the hill together, is he wasn't sure of her faithfulness. He
Okay.
wasn't sure if she hadn't changed, so he needed to pretend to be a third party, someone that she wouldn't put on a false face to and glean the truth. It's like, am I going to stay with this woman, and has she been loyal to me? I got to find out the truth before I reveal myself. But by the time that she, in anger, pushed him down the cliff, I think he had in his head a good enough idea of, no, this isn't her fault. She was just a victim of circumstance. She still has been loyal to me. And so I'm going to reveal myself. I can see that making sense.
Okay. Okay, I'll just say this for us. It's not Florence, it's Florin.
Florin.
So they might not even be in Italy. We know Vicini's from Italy. They might not even, because no one else speaks like
Sicily.
Well, yeah, Sicily, Italy. It's the rock that Italy kicks. Hey, I'm Northern Italian. I don't give a fuck about Sicily.
I can find fan made and maps for the book, but no like real European maps.
It's just one of these countries stuck in there. After the reveal, why does she throw herself down the hill?
She just accepts it so quickly. I always laugh about that.
I'm at this point, I gotta admit, I'm bored.
Really?
I'm bored at this point because we just got through the three trials of Wesley, strength, basically skill, strength, and wit, and now we all realize it's Wesley, and the reveal's happening. I'm just thinking, I don't like Buttercup. Wesley is Dread Pirate as Man in Black. Dread Pirate Roberts is interesting, and I'm just waiting for something to move along the story. I'm not like. I think the problem is I'm not liking the characters. I'm not liking the characters. That's the thing.
I can see that from a writing standpoint, but like you've said a few times, the performances are just so profound that I found myself loving them, and that comes into.
I'm not rooting for them.
It's true.
That's my problem.
They're not traditional hero archetypes. They're not people you necessarily should root for most of the time. So I can understand it. I still disagree, but I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Then we're through the forest of despair, or not forest of despair. The forest of farting fire things, whatever the hell it's called.
This farting swamp.
Farting swamp. And here's the thing: this entire part is interesting because of Cary Elwes. His dialogue, his delivery keeps me interested because I'm not engaged with the characters. The quicksand moment, the fighting, the rats of unusual size, all of that.
I don't know. The swamps probably growing up was one of my favorite parts, especially because like the story of Andre's back pain, like the story of Carrie breaking his ankle. There are a lot of problems with that trap door that they used for the quicksand. They nearly suffocated like 3 times filming that.
Jesus.
Because it was a trap door at the bottom of the sandpit that someone had to manually open and close to let them fall through safely without draining too much sand. And so if the timing was even a little bit off, they were stuck in there.
Jesus Christ, dude. But the whole thing in there, it just feels like we're trying to transition to another iconic scene. I don't, from a storytelling perspective as well. When he first sees the rats sitting there and then tells her, "I don't believe in them." Why does he say that? because
he
sees them.
doesn't want to freak
I
her
know,
out.
but they're stalking them, and he just continues to mosey along.
I do agree he should,
That's
start to think about defense, start to think about.
They do nothing, and that's what leads him to getting attacked. But it was, to me, it was all just a setup, because we hear the for the explosion, so that we can hear that and have him roll a rat onto it. I feel like that's all that's done, so we can have that little moment. And that's all I'm seeing when I do this, because it's just.
And I can see what you mean, like that swamp. Narratively, I don't know what purpose it serves overall besides he gets hurt. Like, you can have him get hurt at any point in the story and accomplish the same thing. Like, maybe Fezzik ripped his arm part way off. Maybe when he was rolling down the hill, he hit a boulder or something, and it's still functionally the same. Like, yes, they grow closer, they get a chance to talk a little bit.
Yeah.
The fire swamp, I love the fire swamp. It's iconic to me, and the REOU.
See, I don't think it's iconic. I don't think it's like.
I hear people quoting that portion, not as much, but still quite on par with a lot of the other sequences. That it's visually distinct. It's very visually.
It is just, but what it is just another moment where we have. It's just a moment for exposition, so that we can get Wesley's story for the past 5 years, and they do it well. But that's all it is, and it's just so. I'm catching myself this time, where we can see if a rat gets set on fire, and that's it. That's it. I'm not engaged by these characters. I want them to move along. Then we get trapped. Then everything happens. She gets taken. The Humperdinck catch it. Here's what I'm curious about. Up until this point in the story, there's been no hint that Humperdinck is bad. He just seems to be an arrogant prince who wants to marry the farm girl, correct?
Yeah, there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of foreshadowing to his villainous turn. I mean, like, he's been a dick the whole time, but it's not like Vicini hinted that someone was his benefactor, giving him the plan, giving the money for all this. Like, there's never anything like there's something broader than just Vicini being a dick.
I think I understand. I think I understand why Kale's in your chat tonight and not mine, because she's angry with me about this. See, I told you the chat was going to be angry. I must be canceled. See, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen.
Ariel, I wasn't talking about the fire popping quote. Yeah, no one quotes that. But yeah, the part you're talking about, the rodents of unusual size, I don't believe that they exist. Like, I hear that.
I'm not. But that's just a line, not the scene. This is one of the iconic scenes, because we're getting to the next iconic scenes. After the whole Wesley is captured, we get the reveal Humperdinck is the bad guy. I give the story some credit doing show don't tell. Here, Adam's going to be good now. It does some credit show don't tell. You're asking yourself this whole time, yes, I am. Why is Humperdinck marrying this chick who is just a peasant?
He does explain it.
No. I mean, before he does the reveal.
Oh, before the reveal, like, it should be suspicious.
You're asking yourself, why is he doing this, that? And then he does the reveal and explains it. But they did it with good show, don't tell. They didn't have to tell you that I just married a peasant girl to kill a peasant girl, not royalty. I like that. I give the writing credit. They're treating us, the viewer, with intelligence, realizing that we don't need to be told I chose a peasant girl to murder a peasant girl. He just says, I'm going to kill her and start a war so I can get more power. That's great. They didn't need to tell us that. It makes sense. I give the writers credit for that. So it's good show don't tell. It's good show don't tell.
But it is kind of good, like you said. It made you suspicious of, like, this doesn't make sense. So
it had been a while, so I had
forgotten. So that is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So,
but it was done well, because
very well.
It had been easily 20 years since I'd seen this movie. I remember most of it with the way my crazy ass memory works, but that little part, Humperdinck's reveal, I had forgotten that part. So when he did that, I said, okay, now I get it. But she's not royalty yet. She's not real royalty. You gotta remember, if you're going by Renaissance aristocracy and all that kind of stuff, if you aren't born with noble blood, you're not noble to them. and therefore
Yeah.
that you
You
can
might
do
be
what-
officially royalty, but there was
You
the
might
stigma around
marry
it.
in.
And she wasn't married to him yet at the point where he intended her to be captured by Vicini
Yeah,
and murdered.
that was the
So
backup plan. Murdering her on their wedding night was the backup plan.
Mhm.
She was supposed to be killed before they were married.
Mhm.
Of the time, nobility, aristocracy, unless you were born to it by blood, you were just tools to be used. And I realize here right now how all the chat has abandoned me and gone to your stream. I could see my studio and I can see the live count on StreamYards, all but I believe Legatus, because he's modding over here, have abandoned me and gone to your chat.
Which is funny because I'm still being pretty hypocritical. I mean,
Yeah,
not
but
hypocritical. Very critical. Excuse me.
Oh, you are still here, Ariel?
I
Oh,
might
yes,
be
I
critical.
see. I see. I have to look back and forth, guys. I'm sorry. Ariel's still here because she is also going to torture me and troll me too. I see you, Ariel. I didn't forget you. Well, Legatus jumps back and forth, so I will only see one. He's going back and forth in the chats. But you got well. Then YouTube Studio's lying to me, then, guys. If more of you are here, then YouTube Studio's lying to me, and I apologize.
Yeah,
I was also trying to ham it up for the joke that everybody hates me.
Yeah, for some reason YouTube says only one person is watching you when I'm watching you. So yeah, there's definitely something going on.
Yeah, and I see a total of 14 people across both chats watching us right now. So, but either way, guys, I'm also trying to ham the joke. You understand? I'm trying to ham up the joke. Either way, the next iconic scene. All right. Let me ask you this. I think the next iconic scene is the torture scene.
I would add in an iconic line prior to that.
Okay.
When the henchman dude comes down there with his real
The albino?
the albino with his like the pit of despair. You're never like that. That is very iconic. That I hear quoted all the time. I laugh probably the most in the movie at that joke there. I would add in that as being very iconic, but when you take a scene as a whole, yeah, probably the torture scene would be the next one that
because there's the dialogue exchange, then Count Six Fingers comes down, there's more exchange. But the whole
not to 50.
That's later. That's later. That's when Humperdinck is really pissed off. But I gotta question the machine. How is it sucking a year of life out of somebody using suction? What did they learn about the truck stop 1,000 years before? I mean, what's going on here? I don't understand.
I don't understand this machine. It's just suction cup.
I guess it's a fairy tale thing. I guess
it might be magic. It might be rapid dehydration.
Maybe that's why it's on his nipples. I don't know.
It's milking him.
It milks Wesley of his life force. I don't know.
I don't understand. But that's going to be my headcanon going forward, is they're milking the life.
I'm glad I could help you with that. I'm glad I could supply you with a funny headcanon. See, Ariel agrees with us. It's milking Wesley's milking. I think that everything surrounding that is the next most iconic thing, the death of Wesley. After that, while we just kind of move along, it's getting reduced to Inigo and Fezzik.
It's set up, yeah.
It's everything's set up. Well, honestly, we're not iconic again until we get to Max the Miracle Worker and the cameo that is Billy Crystal.
That's probably my favorite scene, though, with Billy Crystal. That's the one I quote the most.
And it's Billy Crystal. That scene works because of Billy Crystal and what's her name?
Wife, yeah.
And what's her name? Who was another comedian at the time.
Oh, I have no idea who she was.
Oh, I know who she is. You see Scrooged, right?
No.
Oh, you haven't seen. Oh, we're watching Scrooge next year for Christmas.
Okay.
We're watching Scrooge next year. Carol Kane. Thank you, Andy Pickle. Carol Kane. Yeah, she was a comedian at the time. I was going to say, if you saw Scrooge, you would know who she was. Okay, yeah, they make that scene.
It's so funny. And
that's filled with the one-liners that everybody quotes.
The most quotable scene.
Yeah. But that's it. We've gone through another 20 minutes of transitionary scenes to get to this moment that everybody's going to sit and quote.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
There are scenes that I enjoy in the interim, but yeah, iconic I think is where it's difficult because there are important scenes. Like I really like the sequence where Fezzik nurses Indigo back to health. I really
But
like that bit.
that goes back to my original point. Those scenes are enjoyable because of Mandy Patinkin and Andre the Giant.
Oh, 100%.
Everything else in between is let's hurry up. Let's get back to the actors.
All right,
Make characters someone like
that scene that I just brought up where Fezzik nurses him back to health is actually an important one to compare to the only thing that annoys me in this movie. As much as I've criticized a lot of this film, I still love it implicitly. Subjectively, I can't criticize it, but objectively, I have found things. There's one thing that just overrides all my love for this film. Is at the very end, at a really sweet moment when Fezzik gets the white horses and whatnot.
Fezzik, you did something right.
That line, and everyone acts like, "Oh, that's so sweet." He said he did something nice, but no, that's implying that Fezzik has been screwing up the entire film. The only thing that he screwed up with was not winning in a fight against Wesley, and that was a good thing that happened. But like, he nursed Indigo back to health. He distracted this guards.
He breaks down the door.
He does so much right in the film that I hate that line.
Yeah.
And how everyone just like, oh, isn't that sweet? Like the movie acts like it's a sweet moment. And Fezzik doesn't argue with it. He's like, yeah, I did. Aren't I great? It's like, God damn
you know what?
it.
I'm going to blame Rob Reiner, bad directing.
Yeah. And there might have been a scene in between that, like a deleted scene that would explain that line. But yeah, that's the only thing that like overrides my subjectivity. And that I can't enjoy. That's the only part of the film that I can't enjoy. I can enjoy every other scene, even though, especially the ones I criticize, even those ones. And yes, JB, he did steal horses too. So,
but then again, you're stealing it from Humperdinck, so that's okay.
True, but yeah, they're very morally gray characters overall, and I think it's an interesting thing.
We get through our Miracle Max scene. We are up. I would say now they're give or take one because we were this is only an hour and 38 minutes, right? I believe this movie. It's only
it's pretty short.
It's not a long movie, which is good because any longer, and it'd be really hard to watch because they'd have too much filler scenes.
It does get to the point
because we have to be honest now. We've gone about 25 minutes, and Cary Elwes hasn't said a word. And his character is the most engaging character because of his delivery and his acting. We get the pill of life coated in chocolate to make it don't go down better.
Which I don't know how that makes any sense.
I don't know how they did it because how does he swallow if he's...
Yeah, it just like gets stuck in his mouth or something. But that is where some of the world building issues I have a problem with. Like some people will say it's fairy tale, so it doesn't need to make sense. But if this is a magical world where there are magical elements to it, regular magical elements, I can totally buy it's just a magic pill. It is literally just a magic pill. But through most of the film, they like
that thing's a horse pill, man.
It's a horse.
That should be stuck in his throat. And it's not like that's like with suppository and they shoved it up his ass.
That would be.
You knew I was going there, weren't you?
Oh
yeah. You knew I was going there. Yeah.
But it is kind of difficult to get a track on this film because for the majority of it, yes, it's fanciful, but it seems like there's not magic. I mean, yes, there's true love, but that's more
and there
a romanticized thing.
Monsters of a sort, the giant rats, the eels, those are sort of monsters.
Yeah, but those are variations of things that actually exist. Like, is it literally magic? If it is, I can totally buy it. If it's just weird.
Even though sorry, I have to get to it. Even though he's not completely dead, he can't swallow. Can't swallow.
Especially something that big.
And Andre's hand, there's no way that that finger's getting all Andre's hand is too big.
I don't know. Ariel might be better at swallowing big things than you and I, Adam. So
hey, she's admitted to that plenty of times. So there's no.
Yeah. So that might be why it makes sense for her.
She has always admitted that. So we're having fun with Ariel. Anyway, Miracle Back. So we're at what though? 3, maybe 4 major scenes, big scenes in this hour and a half, and these are the scenes everybody waits to get to. Even when they've the first time you've seen it, you don't know you're getting there, but afterwards, you're just waiting for these scenes, and then you're waiting for. Now the final 2 major scenes, 3, maybe 2.5 if you count Fezzik, Dread Pirate Roberts.
What?
I'm just reading Ariel. Ariel, we know from Engage. Come on, I know from Engage. What you said to Ryan, we have it on receipts. Anyway, all right. So I would say now here comes the comedy. Half alive Wesley, where his head's lolling back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you moved your hand. Isn't that great? The little comedy here.
Mm-hmm.
The delivery, because one, Andre does great delivery with that, the way he does it. And Cary Elwes, I give Cary Elwes prop for his physical acting in that.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of, I would say, physical talent to really go that limp and have somebody else move your body parts, because that's hard. That's not easy. So that's some great physical acting by Cary Elwes.
Yeah.
And now at this point we've learned that count six fingers, and the whole reason. Here's the whole thing. Here's the whole funny thing. This whole sequence of events, bringing Wesley back to life, the attack on the castle, it's not to save Buttercup. It's just so Inigo can get his revenge. It's not even to really save Wesley from being mostly dead. It's just so he can get his revenge.
It is a give and take. He's like, here, I'll help facilitate you rescuing Buttercup if you help me. Like, there is the give and trade, but yeah, that is the motivation that got everyone together initially.
Yeah. And it's back to the discussion part of these are morally gray people. These are not heroes. These are borderline anti-heroes in a way, who are all doing these things for their own selfish reasons. And they just so happen to coincide and cross that they can help each other, except for Fezzik. Fezzik's just doing it to be helping out, because he's just he is the nice guy in that sense.
He's very naive and will help anyone, but yeah, he's very lovable.
So the half iconic scene, as you pointed out earlier, is Andre Fezzik in the giant Dread Pirate Roberts cloak and doing that, scare everybody away. They get inside.
Overcut with the wedding. The wedding, I think, is very iconic because of the priest.
Marriage! Oh, I hate that.
Marriage is what brings us together today.
It's so campy. It's too campy for me.
It is pretty dumb. I love it, but it's pretty dumb.
It's too. You guys know I can handle my camp. It's too much for me. Maybe because I'm not so invested at this point, which is why I'm going. Remaining two iconic scenes: Indigo versus Count Six Fingers.
Absolutely.
That is. Honestly, that's one of the top two scenes in the movie. For me, it might even be the top scene. Father, I failed you. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Would you argue that is the most quoted line in this movie?
Probably.
Because people will take that and they'll meme it. They'll say, I am so-and-so. You killed my... They won't even say, I'm not Inigo Montoya. They'll put anything in there. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
I think because it's more distinct than As You Wish, I would agree. That...
Oh, it's way more. Oh, no, dude. As You Wish is only with the fans. But the whole world, whether you know or not, I am Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. The world knows that line.
Yeah.
That line is in the pop culture zeitgeist.
Absolutely.
As You Wish is not.
I would agree.
So I would say that is the most iconic thing, and it's because of the scene. Because he says it over and over again, and it gives now that's a gut wound he gets from the dagger, and you get about an hour, maybe two, with a gut wound like that if you can staunch the bleeding before you can get some medical attention. I can believe the adrenaline gets him through that fight.
Yeah,
it's
believable.
It's believable.
And it's not easy for him. It's not like he just presses on like it's nothing. Like he has to hold it, put pressure on the wound, and he's constantly falling over. Like it's difficult for him. But that's what makes it so iconic. Like, everyone loves the people who fight through insurmountable odds. I mean, that's one reason Captain America is one of the most popular Avengers, is because he always gets up. I mean, it's a simplistic thing that is very easy for audience members to latch onto and care about. So,
and what you get satisfaction at the end of the scene. Revenge is found, and it's done in the way that good storytelling has it happen. The bad guy gets killed with a great line. I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
It's so good.
That's a great line. And this is great acting by Mandy Patinkin, great delivery, and satisfaction. And to prove the point, and this is one of the things I hate about the trope of revenge trope. I truly believe when you get your revenge, you feel good. You will feel good when you get your revenge. I'm a believer in that. I don't like the things say you've gotten your revenge. Now don't you feel hollow inside? I hate that trope. I like I achieved my journey. I avenged somebody close to me that got killed, or in some cases, I avenged myself. It's worth it. It's worth it. So I believe in that, and I like it that they went through and the villain was cowering at the end, begging, and then he just doesn't give two shits and just shoves that sword into his chest and gets his revenge. I dig it. I'm okay with it. And then the final iconic scene, the bedroom scene. Cary Elwes carries the scene once again. He carries the scene. His speech about what he will do to Humperdinck. Now I can't quote it. Everybody else in the world can.
Yeah,
but I can't. But that I do know most of the big words, big lines. I know the whole thing.
Well, and it makes sense that he has that talent because as much as I've said he has to keep up the reputation of Dread Pirate Roberts to make the reputation fearsome, there have been times I'm sure he's weaponized just his reputation to win. So like he's already familiar with how to cow someone with just his word. So like they don't have to explain it. They don't have to say
bluff.
It's 100% a bluff.
Yeah.
But like they trust the audience to figure out, yeah, it makes sense why he would have this skill, why he would be so quick with his words. Like I really appreciate that.
And you don't need a duel here. The movie is wise. We just had the duel. We don't need another duel. It's one thing if you're in a big action-packed movie and you have these big fight scenes all set up where certain characters have to go head-to-head. But this is a very simple movie where dueling is the only action you're going to get. And if you just had the intense duel that mattered for two characters, you don't need this one. Because as much as Wesley despises Humperdinck, he only despises him because he took his woman. Yeah. It's not like they have a massive rivalry.
And it's not like he cares so much about starting the war or not.
And for almost killing him. Don't forget, I'm not going to ignore that. He almost killed him. But it's not as though there's this rivalry that's been built up over years where Inigo and Count Six Fingers had that. That's a serious thing. This is, they don't, and also in that small room, there's no room for a good duel in that bedroom. It's a small room. It's not big. And it also leans into the whole fact that Humperdinck is a coward.
Yeah, it makes so much sense character-wise.
It works. The whole thing works, and they did the right thing there for storytelling purposes. And it also is great for people who are really into it at this point, where, again, the scenic music works winning the scene to have it build up, and he stands up, lifts a sword, drop your sword.
That's a very powerful moment.
Yeah.
Carried mostly by his performance, but yeah, like the physicality that he has, the physical acting, like you could tell he's struggling because you know he's struggling, but if you didn't know that, it wouldn't be obvious. Like it was very subtle. And
Electric Lady brings it up. Yeah, he's doing it for love. Love is his strength, this and that. And that's the fairy tale aspect. Guys, you've watched stuff. You know I love the romance aspect of a lot of things. I'm just not digging this romance because Buttercup is a bitch.
If she were more likable, I think it would help it a lot for both of us.
And I have one problem with that scene. I do have one problem with that scene. When he says, it will be a shame, there's a shortage of perfect breasts in the world, it'd be a shame to waste those. Nah.
It's a good line.
It's a great line.
And it makes sense. If you're in love, I can see him like overlooking.
But she don't have perfect boom booms. She don't have perfect. No. You want to hear us talk about perfect breasts? Go watch Mellow Mondays from this week, or watch the clip we're gonna play. God,
Jesus,
have you seen the clip? I'll show it to you after. I clipped it out. Everybody has it. I sent it to everybody. It's gonna be memed. Dermy took all my hard work of clip making yesterday and used it on Ballbusters.
Nice.
But yeah, I just don't agree because I think Robin Wright was a little miscast for this, both in terms of beauty and acting, because she doesn't carry her into the role as opposed to being up against right next to Cary Elwes, who just was phenomenal. He is phenomenal in this. I'm not gonna. I can be objective. And then the movie's over.
It just sort of ends. It's like they've kissed now. Everything's perfect. The prince isn't gonna come after them.
And you got Inigo's gonna be the next Dread Pirate Roberts, and the cycle will continue because, frankly, he's perfect for it. Although the problem is maybe he's not as smart as Wesley, so he might have some problems. But who knows how it works? Maybe you don't have to be that smart to sack ships. I don't know. And then they live happily ever after. We get the Fred Savage part. Wait, I'm okay with saying them cast now, and you get the nice grandfather grandson ending there. You get some rest, but then the movie just kind of ends as you wish. And you know, because it means I love you. Yes, get it. It works. It just doesn't work for me. It's just there we go. We got through it. I hope, chat, you're not all as angry with me as I thought you might be. Listen, do you think we can say that who was maybe going to be here? Is that okay? Because it was just scheduling. Yeah, Epic Mike was supposed to join us this week, but he had a scheduling conflict. And Epic Mike loves this movie, and if he had been here,
it would have been rough.
I would have had a fight on my hands, and Jesus would have been like this. But it would have been I would have had to fight for every one of my points, and it would have been entertaining because you guys know Mike brings the passion when he's ready for a debate. But we'll have Epic Mike back sometime. He's been on the channel before. We'll have him back sometime for something else, I'm sure. But it would have been great. With that being said, Jed, any final thoughts on Princess Bride?
Overall, I vastly enjoy this one. We're going to get to the ratings in a moment, but if I were doing a subjective rating, I would give this a 10 out of 10 just because of how much I enjoy every single second of it. I see the criticism, I understand it, and especially with you with the oversaturation, I get it.
You understand my point when I make.
Absolutely.
At that time, as a teenager, the saturation, the constant of it, it was never a break. And especially for somebody who this movie wasn't appealing to in the first place. Overall, I don't hate this movie. I just am not a big fan of it.
That's completely fair. I do want to say I am very much not a proponent of it's a kid's movie, so it's okay if it's dumb. Oh, it's a fairy tale. It's okay that it's dumb.
Yeah.
Like just that whole idea. Like I've heard people say, "Oh, you're criticizing a Pixar movie. You're not allowed to do that. It's a kid's movie, so there's no legitimate criticism."
Yeah.
I've heard stuff like that, and even people in the chat here today were saying it's a fairy tale, so don't use logic on it. I don't come from that perspective on it. It can be very effective at what it's doing and very enjoyable still, even if it doesn't hold up to logical scrutiny, but that doesn't make it great. It doesn't elevate it to the level that I think it could be, because even fairy tales, even fantasies, even kids shows can be written very, very well and be exceptional. Plenty of examples, and internal logic is an important thing. If this film had better internal logic, that's great. That's why I mentioned if magic was a little bit more pronounced in the film, a lot of other things could be explained away, forgivable, and fall under legitimate in-universe scrutiny. But without that, it has to come to the real-world logic, and it doesn't live up to explanations of real-world logic. So I'm very much, the genre doesn't excuse bad writing. If it had internal logic, great, but it needs to live up to some form of logic.
And as for me, as I've been saying the whole stream, I never hid any of my feelings on this. You guys knew for a week I was going to be pushing back a little bit. I have a real world history with this film in terms of why it annoys me. But then watching it yesterday or the other day, I watched it as objectively as I could, knowing my own slightly negative subjective taste to this. It works as a fairy tale. While I don't love the characters, they fit in the setting when you understand what the setting is. The story narrative, while a bit choppy, does have its connecting points, but it brings me back to my original point. This movie is basically built around 4 to 5 major scenes that are iconic and people are in love with. And that's why they love this movie, those scenes. The in-between parts just kind of get you there. And when I'm watching a movie like this, I want the in-between part to matter more to me. I want to still be entertained, waiting for the iconic scenes. Therefore, well, Jed, it's your week. You get to rank it first. You get to score first. So,
just real fast, Andy in the chat brings up suspension of disbelief, and that is 100% legitimate when it comes to subjective view. That's why when I do my subjective ratings, that is my suspension of disbelief. Feeding into that. But when I'm trying to be objective, I have to eradicate my suspension of disbelief to have an objective opinion on it. So I strategically use and don't use suspension of disbelief, but for an enjoyment, pure fantasy, turn your brain off. Suspension of disbelief is more than sufficient for this film.
To that point, suspension of disbelief is something that's missing from all the modern shit that we get today, because they're constantly driving agenda into it. There's no agenda in this movie. And that's why the suspension of disbelief is there. I'm just not enjoying myself. Plain and simple. That's it. All right, so score it. Go.
All right, so like I said, subjectively, 10 out of 10. I can watch this movie any day, even like 7 days a week, and still enjoy it every single time. I adore this film. But objectively, I think I'm pushing it and being a little bit more generous because of the bias I do have for this film, saying that it's a 7 out of 10. There are significant logic issues in it. There's some poor design sequences. There's some bad writing. And so, yeah,
I'm right there with you. 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. I see.
I want to give this a 9. I want to give this, but like this whole discussion has shown, there are legitimate.
Here's the thing. I just watched this for the first time in easily 20 years or more. I don't think I watched this since either the late 90s or early 2000s. It's been a long ass time because it's not something I choose to watch, even if it passes me on TV. I will likely never watch this movie again unless I have a significant other who likes it and wants to do it, and I make a deal. It's like, okay, we're going to watch this because you want to watch it, or hopefully I have kids one day and they like it and they want to watch it. Those are the only two reasons I will ever, on my own, watch this. Now, if I end up, or if I'm someplace and somebody puts it in and it's on, that's it. I will never willingly, of my own private viewing accord, watch this again. But I give it a respectful 7 out of 10 because of everything Jed said and everything we've been talking about. It will. Oh, thanks, JB. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Be alone forever. Thanks. It is an iconic movie. It is now a classic movie. It gets its 30th anniversary release. It gets anniversary re-releases. That's how important this movie is to the zeitgeist. It gets anniversary re-releases. And people buy it up. Even if they have 5 copies already, they will buy it again. And they will treasure it and love it. And that's the important thing. I don't hate that people like this movie.
No.
I just want to be able to say I don't like it and not be destroyed, which I very carefully get, which I tread very carefully with this one, because I know, I honestly, I thought I was going to get a lot more hate tonight over this for my takes on it, because I've never known more clearly that I could be walking into a lion's den with my feelings on this movie, with the way people feel about it. Because every time it comes up, it's the best ever. And I just go, anyway. All right, guys, that's it. We're taking a week off next week because of MegaCon. But when we come back in February, we will be watching. And now I'm giving this one to Jed because now he deserves something to sink his teeth into and really have a big, hearty, story-driven, character-driven, historically-driven discussion. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing Memoirs of a Geisha.
I'm looking forward to it.
Soundtrack by John Williams. You want to talk about a soundtrack that elevates a movie? And then we're in February. Jed, are you still locked in on what you wanted to do after this one?
Yep.
All right. Then what are we doing after Memoirs of a Geisha? Then we'll give you guys a heads up.
Well, we decided to mix things up a bit, go for some classic superhero content. We haven't done that at all. I don't think we've ever done a classic superhero film.
No, we haven't done superhero films yet. No, we have not.
At all.
Because why bother with an MCU movie?
Exactly. Well, we're going to be doing the original Christopher Reeves Superman. I think we're doing the Donner cut.
We're doing the Donner cut, guys.
Cut
we're
of the 70s Superman.
Donner cut. Doing the Donner cut, guys. And then I can announce that after that, because it is Black History Month. And this is the one movie that I have permission from Jed to return to this actor for. We'll be doing Coming to America after that. Jed gave me permission. I told you about this last year, so you knew this was coming.
I don't remember this, but let's do it.
You did. You said I could do this.
I'm sure I did. I don't remember.
You said I could do another Eddie. You said I could do an Eddie Murphy movie if it was Coming to America. You said I could do it. And I was saving it for Black History Month. Anyway, guys, so there it is, guys. There's the next 3 drive-ins. I'm losing my speech.
So that's the next month?
The next month, yeah. Well, actually, it's a leap year. It's a leap year. It's a little longer this year, February. A little longer. Anyway, guys, thank you one and all across both channels. If you had a good time tonight watching live or on the re-upload, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channels. Let's have a great time. This is going to be a great year going forward, guys. We appreciate each and every one of you in the chat, whether you agree with us or not. That's what good discussion's about. A discussion, a debate, because we're not an echo chamber. We're here to have fun and enjoy life. Thank you again, guys. Take it easy. Have a good night or day wherever you may be.